Hello, welcome back to Gunfighter Life. As always, I am your host, Michael Melito. A little bit about me. First and foremost, I am a Christian. I make no apologies for that. That comes out in everything that I do, and this podcast will be no different. I started this podcast. I wanted the gun community to get some real-world perspective in it. I know that a lot of opinions and things are floating around out there, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I certainly have my own biases, but hopefully they're rooted in some real-world experience. I started shooting at a very early age. Some of my earliest memories are hunting and shooting. I did my first formal shooting competitions even before I was old enough to join the Marine Corps, and I joined the Marine Corps at 17, so I started competing at a very early age. I've won more competition shooting events than I can remember. State rifle and pistol champion a few times over. I've competed in everything from precision rifle to action pistol, steel challenge. If you don't know what those are, don't worry about it. I grew up, like I said, hunting and shooting at a very early age. I've been very blessed to hunt all over this beautiful country, everything from whitetail on the East Coast and mule deer on the West Coast, and elk and bear and wolf and all manner of things, all manner of beasts that roam the earth I've been able to take and hunt and have dominion over, and I'm very blessed for that. I joined the Marine Corps at 17, where I did several combat tours. After my combat tours, I was an urban warfare instructor for the Marine Corps, where I taught urban warfare and desert warfare. After my time in the Marine Corps was up, I went to work for law enforcement. I worked for LAPD. I worked patrol assignments and more specialized assignments. I also served in the U.S. Army full-time and part-time National Guard. In addition to that, I've been a private contractor. I was a commander of an SRT team, a special response team, for a fairly large metropolitan area in the United States. I won't get into any more detail about that. I'm a shooting instructor. I've been a professional shooting instructor for a long time. I'm an FBI certified firearms instructor, NRA certified. I taught at one of the largest private schools for shooting in the country and probably the world by that measure. And I've done that. And I'm certified in a bunch of other three-letter government agencies that I don't care to mention. I've been a professional hunter and guide now. I gave up my big city career as an SRT commander to come out in the country because I miss the country and hunting and shooting and teaching people how to shoot. And I am a professional hunter and guide. So not many people in today's day and age can say they professionally hunt buffalo and elk and things as a guide, but I'm very blessed to be able to do that. So that's a little bit about my background and experience. Today, our topic is going to be the 243 as a cartridge. A little bit about the history of the 243 as we get into today's topic. So the 308, we can't talk about one without the other because the parent case of the 243 is the 308. Now, the 308 came about in the early 1950s. I'm not exactly sure when it saw military adoption, but it came out as a commercial cartridge in the early 1950s, and by 1955, somebody had already decided to what they call neck it down. So they took the 30 caliber .308 inch bullet and put in a .243 or 6 millimeter bullet, and that gave it as far as ballistics go, a lighter, faster bullet. So think about it simply this way. If you're not big into ballistics nerds and calculation stuff like I am, you take a 308 and you put a smaller bullet in there with the same amount of powder, give or take, which makes it go faster. So you have a lighter, faster bullet. Generally, they're talking anywhere from 55 grains to 100 grains. I know you can get probably some lighter and some heavier, and you can hand load, which I've done plenty of, and this or that. But generally, you're talking a 55 grain bullet to a 100 grain bullet is pretty typical for a 243. So it came out, I believe, in 1955 in the model Winchester Model 70. Verify that for yourself, but I believe that's correct, 1955 commercial adoption. So it's been around a while, and it's pretty popular. And it's pretty popular as like a woman's and a youth's cartridge. And I'm here to tell you why maybe that's not the best reputation for it. it's good at a lot of things, but it's kind of known for that, like youth rifle, somebody's first rifle, a 243. Great Whiskey Myers song if you want to look that up. My first rifle was a 243. Great song. But anyway, it is a lot of people's very first deer hunting cartridge for good reason. I guess nowadays a lot of people are getting into deer hunting with a 223, but 243 I would say is definitely a great choice for your first deer rifle. But why it doesn't necessarily have to be a choice for that. So what is a 243 great at? Well, it's got a pretty wide range of bullets. Like I said, in that 55 grain, that lighter end of the spectrum, it is a great varmint cartridge. It is great on varmints. It's great on coyotes. It's great on anything from like woodchuck, rockchuck size stuff to coyotes in that 55 grain bullet. It's great for that. You step up to a little bit heavier bullets. You know, the 75 grain would be kind of my minimum recommendation for deer. 75 grain to really good choice to 85 grain up to the 100 grain. So those are great solid. The 75 grain, 85 grain, 100 grain soft point bullets are great for deer. Deer size medium game, I think, is where the 243 really shines. And not just for the beginner, for anybody. It is a great medium, light-skinned game. We're talking whitetail deer, mule deer, blacktail deer, anything like that. It is great for that. And you can take larger game. I'll get into my experience with the 243 a little bit later. We'll save that. But you can take larger game, but it really excels at the whitetail deer. And it really excels. It's a good long-range performer, but it really excels in like a nice, lightweight, handy rifle with your traditional powered optics, with taking shots anywhere from, close in 25, 50 yards out to 300, 350 yards. And I know you can hunt farther than that, but like I said, I'm a professional hunter and guide, and I like spot and stalk hunting, and I have taken animals further than 300 yards, but I generally don't. I generally like to spot and stalk up closer to my animals and get within 300 yards of them and ethically take them and give them, fair chase and let them know that give their senses the ability to at least detect me, so I'm doing something. Anyway, that's just the way that I hunt. That's not the way that you have to hunt. Let's welcome all kinds of hunters here. But it definitely has good long-range ballistics, especially with the heavier bullets. But it's a great cartridge for deer-sized game inside of 350 yards. It is great for that. And it's also great for varmints. And a great thing about the 243, which I really like about it, is a lot of fun to shoot. It doesn't have a lot of recoil, and you can get well. We're in the ammo apocalypse right now of 2020/2021. I don't know when you're going to listen to this, but normally in any but the craziest of times, 243 ammo is pretty available, and it's affordable most of the time. And that makes it great to hunt and shoot with. And I'll tell you, as a professional guide, I'd rather you guiding somebody on a hunt, and rather than come to me with a 243 that they practice with all the time, than, let's go crazy and say like a 400 Nitro Express, which is a giant round that they shoot once and they can't shoot anymore because they don't practice with it because it's got a ton of recoil and it's too expensive. So I'd rather have you with a 243 that you can practice with. So it hits that mark. It checks that box. It's affordable ammo. It's fun to shoot. And it's great for youth shooters, for women shooters, but it's also great for expert shooters. So I'll get into a little bit about my experience with the 243. I don't live in Idaho anymore, but I lived in Idaho for a long time. It's a great state. It's probably my favorite state. I've lived all over the state of Idaho. I've hunted all over the state of Idaho. And I love the 243. And I had bigger, what I guess you would consider more powerful rifles. But when it came time to hunt, I went to Walmart and bought a 243 Remington 700 youth model because it was super light and super handy. And I hunted everything with that I can't say everything. I never took like a moose or anything because I never drew a tag. But I took several elk. I took a wolf. I took more deer than I can recall with a 243. It was light. It was handy. And I would hike up and down those mountains all day. And if you've ever been to Idaho and seen like the Sawtooth Mountains and the Sawtooth Wilderness and known the vast expanses of that, you could see where a light, handy rifle would come in handy. And I still hunt with a 243. I still take it out. It still is with me around the ranch here where I professionally guide. It's great for coyotes. It's great for taking out deer that get injured or wounded or have their back ends pulled out by coyotes or whatever. It's a great all-around gun. That 243 is what, when I took my wife out for her first sheep hunt, I have a lot of really nice rifles. You know what I grabbed for her and had her practice with and had her take out on her first sheep hunt? I had her take out the 243 Remington 700 Youth Model. It's light, it's handy, it doesn't have a ton of recoil, it's a blast to shoot, it's great. So that's a little bit about me and my experience with the 243. Like I said, I've taken elk with a 243. I would not recommend that. It's not like, I would never say that that's like the best elk cartridge by far. I'd also say if you're going to do that, it's an expert's round for elk. You need to be even closer than 300 yards, and you really need to pick your shots. I gave up quite a few elk because they just didn't present a perfect shot. And with a 243, I want like a good quartering to me neck shot, or a good quartering away where I can get in between the rib cage and really do some massive damage inside that elk chest cavity. And I know with that being done, that elk will go down. But I would not recommend that for like a go-to elk cartridge. But I would recommend it for an awesome go-to deer cartridge, especially if you're in somewhere with a little bit more wide open area. If you're hunting east of the Mississippi and you're hunting a piece of land where your longest shot is, 50 yards, 75 yards, which is not uncommon in the east with all the briars and brambles and everything, then you may be better served with like a 30-30 or a 35 Remington or something like that. But if you're anywhere where you might get a shot out to 200, 300 yards on deer-sized game, 243 is amazing. It's an amazing cartridge. My favorite load for that, I hand-loaded for it for years, is I won't give any specific load data because you need to consult a reloading manual for that if you're going to reload, but 85 grain Sierra Game King. I've taken a lot of game with that 85 grain Sierra Game King loaded on top of a charge of Varget and a 243. That's a great load. I don't even load it to max. I load it a little bit under max, but it is just dynamite on deer size game. So that 85 grain Sierra Game King, the 100 grain soft points, those I'd really take a look at. I like the 100 grain soft points by Federal, and that really depends more on your rifle, whatever your rifle likes. My rifle liked those 85 grain Sierra Game Kings. It also likes the 100 grain Federals, but any kind of like 100 grain soft point, the Remington Core Locks, be a pretty standard deer load. Like I said, your Federal soft points would be a good go-to deer round. Whatever the Winchester, white box, 100 grain soft points, like I said, affordable. Any of those brands or any of those bullets are pretty established as taking deer. If you don't take a deer-sized game with a 243 inside of 300 yards, it's not the cartridge's fault. It's something that you probably did wrong. So that cartridge will perform on that application. Anyway, I hope you like listening to about cartridge talk about the 243. Get to better know a cartridge. If you guys do like this, I'll try and do some more of it. I'm going to do some housekeeping stuff. I know a lot of people do that in the beginning, but I don't want to do that. I don't like listening to podcasts where they make you sit through a ton of housekeeping stuff before they start talking about the topic. So if you want to turn this off, you can. You can listen to the podcast completely free. But like I said, I recently gave up a big city job to come out and hunt and guide and be a professional shooting instructor. And doing the podcast is a big part of that. I've been doing this podcast, and if you like what I do here, you may also like, if you want to get more into the important stuff, which is being a follower of Christ, Simple Man Sermons is also a podcast that I do. It's the flagship podcast. And I also do one called the Alpha Male Podcast. If you want to learn more about how to be an alpha male in today's society where everything's trying to feminize you and make you ashamed to be a big, strong alpha male, then you might want to give the Alpha Male Podcast a listen. So I do those other podcasts. All kind of under the umbrella of Good Shepherd Training. I can put a link to the Good Shepherd Training website on here. You can also go to Good Shepherd on Patreon. If you thought this content or any other content that is put out is worth $1 or more, I'd really appreciate the support on Patreon. So you can go there on Patreon. If you want to give, give. If you don't want to give, then don't, and do not feel guilty. 100% listen to this podcast and don't feel like you're obligated to do anything. Like I said, if you have it in your heart to give, give. And if not, don't worry about it and don't feel guilty about it. If you do want to get involved on Patreon, I just set up Patreon. So there's not, I guess what I'm saying is you guys are the community. I consider this like a community podcast. I might do it, but it's for you guys and for us. So whatever you want on Patreon, if you want me to do like an EDC bag dump or give some like pro tips for like guiding and shooting and hunting on the Patreon, or, you know, if you want to have like some kind of fireside chats where you ask live questions, whatever you guys are into, you know, send me a message on the website or send me a message on Patreon and let me know what kind of things you would like, and I'll make that happen for you guys, because the Patreon will be for the community, for you guys. So if you guys want to chat with each other, if you guys want, you know, whatever you want, alpha male dog tags, you know, whatever kind of things you guys want from that, you let me know, and God will provide on that, I'm sure. So like I said, look us up, Good Shepherd Training. I'll put a link to the website, Good Shepherd Training on Instagram. You can also listen to Simple Man Sermons, the Alpha Male Podcast, and any past episodes of Gunfighter Life completely free. I also do, like I mentioned, professional shooting instruction, professional guiding, and professional training. You can find all that on Good Shepherd Training if you're interested. I really appreciate and I'm very humbled that anybody listens to these podcasts, but they have done quite well, and I'm very humbled for that, and I just want to say thank you, and have a blessed day.